Society Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Bernie Furshpan, host of Ordinary Heroes here on hmTv at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. Today I have an extraordinary human being who's no ordinary hero, let me tell you. Robert Zahn runs a TV studio at a high school locally here on Long Island, and he does some fabulous things with young people. More than just teaching them the technology, but he teaches them life skills. I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today, Robert Zahn. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. You've been running this TV studio for how many years now?
Oh, my goodness. Well, since around 2010, but I was also part of the program in the 1990s as an assistant to my predecessor. His name was Robert Gluck. In fact, Great Neck had three TV directors. Well, let me backtrack. Great Neck Public Schools is the first public schools in the country to have a film TV program. It started in around 1951.
Wow.
When television was just starting to get across to the country. And there was a teacher named Vera Larner, and she wrote to the superintendent at the time, John L. Miller, saying that Great Neck needs a film TV program. This is the way of the future. And he did it. So there was been only three television directors, Vera Larner, from 52 to around 73. Then my predecessor, Robert Gluck, who really took it to another level from 73 to 2010. And here I am.
Here you are. You know, I've heard about you in particular for many years, about the program that you have. And I've always wanted to meet you. And lo and behold, we have some common family and friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
we sure do.
And when we met, it was love at first sight. I just love what you do with the young people. I love your attitude. You're a warm and kind and generous human being.
As are you.
Thank you so much. And so you enjoy doing this with young people.
Yes. Well, I also have a sarcastic side, but it is the highlight every day. And it's just amazing because, as you know, the technology and the cameras and everything is more of a gateway to not just skills and people skills and the real world skills, but being a good human being.
Right. And that was actually my first question. You teach them, of course, how to use the microphones, how to set things up, and how to switch cameras and things like that. And the lingo, of course, the TV lingo, production lingo. But there's more to it than that.
Well, yeah. But, it's funny because a lot of people don't realize what it takes to put on a film production or a TV show or news show. We have a high school program. We have a middle school program. And the first thing, people think that we just start with the cameras. No, we got to know the lingo. We start with the PowerPoint first. What is the lingo? What does the equipment do? And when do you use the equipment? So in a live TV, it's not just everyone doing everything. It's a director calling the shots, ready one, take one, assistant director getting the shots ready, the audio, making sure that the mics are ready. So it's the
graphics, the camera.
The CG, the graphics, the camera. When adversity happens, and adversity is a good word, things don't go all the time. So there is a process. Before we go into the studio, it's like 2 months before we go into the studio.
Yeah. And so it requires really good teamwork and people understanding everybody's job, right? So that somebody can jump in if they need help.
Everyone is a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And if one piece is off, we all go down. And goes to teamwork, collaboration, everything that, quite frankly, I would have loved to learn when I was in middle school and high school. And we're all one, and we all have to learn to respect each other, be kind, and get the job done. And I think that's a great life lesson on working together. We're all different, but we have a common goal. And that's the thing. And that's what, in my case, what film and TV production can do. Brings different personalities together. And as you said before, it's not just learning the equipment. It's not just learning how to film or to direct or to use the microphones or to change cameras. It's working together. It's life skills. It's communication, respectful communication, time management, because the clock is always ticking. In our middle school show, we get there at 7:30. Between 7:30 and 8, we're setting up. We're seeing what stories to do, emails, all that stuff. At 8 o'clock, I want a rehearsal. So we have a rehearsal in case there's any mistakes, so we know how to correct it and fix it. And then 8:20, we go live. We have it at 2 middle schools, this live TV show. Or if we're filming something on location, it's the same thing. We have to set up on location, all the cameras, and like a studio here, we're setting up a studio on location to film. So it takes hours to do it and put in the cables and all of that. So we're all working together, and then we have the actual show, whether it's we film an opera or a sporting event or graduation. We set it up, we film, and then we have to break down, which takes a while to do. So camaraderie is really important, and teamwork, collaboration, time management, all these skills that are really important.
I find that organizations like this, teamwork like this, transforms people. They come in unsure, probably a little bit not confident, but they become transformed into a very confident person. And have you seen situations like that where somebody who is very timid has really come out of their shell?
All the time.
All the time.
It's happening now. Literally as we speak, there are people probably in the studio and being there. That's the best part. I would have been that person in school, not confident. In school, I was the person who sat furthest from the teacher. I was alone. I was very introverted, and I see it all the time. You could see that. So I think it's important to have high standards for them, but to encourage, and you see that personality change. When, a lot of times when we give out jobs, they give their top 3 choices. But once in a while, it gives a job that someone doesn't expect, including director. And you have to see their faces. Wait, what do you see in me? How could I direct? Or how could I be a camera person? And sometimes you have to see things that they don't see in themselves. And you see that change in them. From not confident, quiet, to even joking around. They'll come in my office. I have colleagues, and they'll hang out with us, and they'll just feel good about themselves and more confident enough that you can make a mistake, correct the mistake, have fun, take on leadership responsibilities. It is by far the best part. And those kids do stay. They stay in middle school, high school, and above. They come back when they're in college and after that. So that's the thing that this can do with media literacy and broadcasting, is that it just changes someone. It would have changed me, that's for sure.
Right. Media literacy is so important today. We have to produce a lot better critical thinkers because there's so much misinformation out there.
Oh, yes.
And disinformation, for that matter.
There is a lot. We have a segment in our news shows called News You Should Know, where I have the students pick out real news stories that they think that the school should know. Mm-hmm. And we make sure that when they write the stories, they get it from at least a reliable news source. So usually AP is fairly reliable, but you do have to be careful. Even online, there's a lot of manipulation and social media. People who are not people, they're AI saying things. And, I think AI is great. It has helped me in many ways, but it should never be, in a sense, a substitute for creativity. And I think that's the important thing. So, and a lot of students are not used to creating, are not used to writing, are not used to, I remember asking kids their opinion on movies they saw, and that's part of it, getting their opinions. And a lot of times I'll say, what's your favorite movie? And they'll say a movie. They'll say Harry Potter. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? It's your opinion. Right. So that's part of it. Like, let's hear your opinion. Yeah, let's get it out of there. So being careful with media literacy, making sure, the most accurate information is out there is beyond important.
I think that's so important. Many of these students who've had this early exposure to broadcasting and journalism and film, how has it opened up the doors for them for future careers?
I have so many students who are in the career, whether it's filmmaking, my goodness, a lot of students successful in television, so many. But you know what? It actually even goes beyond being in the field. A lot of the students who go through the program are successful in being a doctor, an architect, a lawyer, and they'll always come and say, this program helped me to prepare for that. So there's a lot of success stories. Before I was even, when Robert Gluck, my predecessor, was running the program, the person who actually produced the Harry Potter movies, Michael Barnathan, went through the program. So there's a lot of success stories. But for me, it's the quieter moments. It's the personality changes. it's the confidence, it's the ready for life type of things that is the success story for me.
You know, we hope that many children learn good values at home, but it doesn't always happen. It happens sometimes in schools by teachers like yourself, where they teach values, not just technical skills like you do, but you teach them really good values in terms of,
I think the most important
work ethics.
No, absolutely. I think it all starts with connection, to have a connection with a student, to respect them. But teaching them, through the process, responsibilities. For instance, if they're late, let's say we have a morning show, I want them to email myself and my staff so we could let the rest of the staff, the kids staff, student staff, know that someone's going to be missing. So they're learning about responsibility. They're learning about commitment. They're learning all these things, and it begins with connection. And we still hold that high standard. But praise, I can't tell you how important praise is. And when someone does a good job and you go, hey, you did it. Great job. Really? And then a little bit more, a little taller, a little bit more. So that honesty, that authenticity, being honest, but mixing that with praise and accurate praise, it changes students, and it's just beautiful.
And I'm sure that the accuracy that you're talking about, being honest.
Absolutely.
I think people need that, of course, but wrap it around with love and praise, and that's really important because everybody needs to feel valuable in society, right? Everybody needs to feel like they, even when you tell a friend about a restaurant that you go to, you got to go to my restaurant, right? And you got to have this dish.
Yeah.
And then they tell you afterwards, I had that dish at that restaurant, and now you feel valuable.
Absolutely.
You feel like you made somebody's life a little bit better.
And that's the whole key. And in our environment, everyone feels valued. Everyone is respected. We joke around. It doesn't matter whether it's with high school or middle schoolers. It's the same thing, whether it's a TV program or a film program. That's the most important thing. Respect, connection, and feeling valued. I mean, who doesn't want to feel valued? It's the worst feeling in the world.
Some of these students probably take on leadership roles in the schools because they feel confident that they can speak up about certain things.
Absolutely. It's a very important thing to speak up. It's very important. Mm-hmm. In school, I was the quiet one. I was afraid what other people would think or kids would think.
Right.
That is encouraged, and speaking up is a part of leadership. And that group connection and leadership is really important. I'm not a fan of cliques. Let's say in our morning show we have sometimes up to 30 kids involved, or when I have high school shoots, there's up to 25, 27. We're all one. There shouldn't be factions of 5 kids here and 5 kids here. And I say no cliques. We're all together. And just keeping an eye out for that. But generally, that's the environment that we usually have.
You mentioned clique. There's a lot of kids that come from different backgrounds, different abilities, different intelligent level. So a variety of different children. But how does this bridge that connection between them?
Well, going back, you were saying something there are a lot of students who might need that whether role model, I don't know what word you want to use, that they might not get it at home. And they learn from us. And I think in instilling that bridge between, modeling what's right, modeling what a good person is, modeling responsibility. I think that all the TV and the equipment is an excuse to better build a human, better, create someone who's a good person for society. And what do you mean? You were talking about the bridge between, just repeat your question.
Yeah. People, first of all, the students have, of various backgrounds,
right? Mm-hmm.
Various interests.
You bet. We have a wide...
Various cultures.
We all have one thing in common.
Right,
though.
but that's the one thing that you have in common. I find that the arts, this is an art form, brings people together because it's a common language.
That's it. I mean, you said it better than I can. I mean, there's different cultures, different personalities. We all have to come together. And normally, students are overwhelmingly, sweet and nice. But that's the thing. We have different learners.
Right.
We have, I was the learner in school who you had to repeat a bunch of times. And there are other learners who just get it like that. There's some great students, mediocre students. Together, we're all one.
I love that. And they probably take it outside the studio and perhaps, bridge it with other people and other students.
Yeah.
to stand up for injustice, perhaps, for making somebody who feels lonely special. So they probably take it outside because they learn a lot of lessons from there. I find that these things teach people a lot of good lessons and values that they can share with others.
And I certainly hope that they take it outside the studio.
Right. And outside the school as well.
And outside the school. I hope I think these are important lessons. And again, it just, when I was young, I didn't feel really, I thought that adults would talk down to me when I was 12, 13. And a lot of kids feel that way. They don't know how to connect. And I remember a cousin's friend took a walk with me and just was talking to me like a peer. And I think he was going, getting over a breakup. And he was just talking to me and I didn't know what to say because I was really young. But I remember how I felt. And that feeling is still with me. And just when you talk respectfully to anyone, at home, I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, soon to be 6. I'm pretty silly with them, but I also speak to them like this. It doesn't talk down. And that just creates respect, intelligence, a little fun. And I think that's the key. And hopefully my students take that on and treat other people like that. A lot of my students go into student government or they'll go into actually politics when they graduate college,
Oh, that's great.
And that's, for me, that's making a difference in the world, which we desperately need right now, a positive difference.
It's amazing that you can take some skill sets, but also the values that you learn and the lessons that you learn in an environment like this, and you can carry it to any other career. It's really...
Oh, absolutely.
I find that to be the case myself. There's some things that I learned in certain... I had many careers.
Yes, you did.
So every career brings with it some skill sets, but also some values that I learned about how to treat customers, how to, how to handle certain situations that may be adverse to some people.
Sure.
And so I bring it to the next place.
Yeah.
And so you only grow that way.
Yeah, right. And management, overseeing, when we have a morning show, it's like 30 kids. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's, and adversity might happen. We might, and the camera might go off.
Right.
Well, we need
how do you handle it?
How do we handle that? Relax, calm down. And I always tell the students, I got you, don't worry. I could always press a button and we don't go on the air. Right. Let's see what we do. And so I teach them if anyone's on camera, and let's say a teleprompter, and for those who don't know, teleprompter has the words of a script, and I could look at the camera, let's see that camera, and I could be looking at the camera and the words will be there. So the anchors will be given the news, and then the teleprompter stops.
Yeah.
We have a script in front.
Right.
You don't want to go like this. You want to smile. I always say, be cool, act cool. Sorry about that, and then continue. So they learn about dealing with adversity with pride and skill and moving on. So there's just so much that could be taught beyond the TV.
Yeah, I find that production teaches me contingency plans. Always be prepared for something to go wrong with everything, and so have a plan on how to handle it. So be prepared, basically.
Right. And
teaching people to be prepared.
And what a great way to start life out, to learn that.
Yes.
Because in life, we get hit with things that there's always something.
You should always have a plan B.
Sometimes when we have shoots, we have plan B, C's, D's.
Right, of course.
So we'll get a feed from the soundboard if we're doing a musical or an opera.
Yeah.
We'll also set up like 7 mics by the stage. We'll also get a mic by a monitor, so different type of things. Or we'll have like 5, 6 cameras set up going into a system like you have, and then we'll have 4 or 5 more cameras that are isolated from the system in case the plug is pulled out.
Correct.
That once happened before I came on a graduation. They were filming a Tiller Center graduation, and it was we have a production truck, and the power went out. And they had to redo some of the graduates walking by again. So I remember I never wanted to go through that. Right. So that's why I have isolated cameras. So yes, you're right.
You do
B plans, C plans, D
Sure.
plans.
In fact, when I built this studio here, every cable, every wire is attached somewhere just in case so that nobody pulls it out. Because you would never know which of the cables was pulled out at any given moment.
No, you don't know.
So you definitely, it teaches you to prepare for life, really.
And part of the confidence, even in this particular job, helped me with confidence, even as a grown-up, okay. And just there's nothing better than mentoring students. And there's really not. I mean, I do a lot of things there. I'm an educator. I'm a film editor. I'm just a manager. I have a staff. But for me, it's just being with students is the big thing.
Was there ever an event that happened in the studio in the past 16 years that was unexpected, a surprise, that you recall, that you tell a story about?
In the studio. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that happen.
Right.
But
that stands out.
I will tell you this.
Yeah.
It's maybe something will. Sorry. Maybe something will pop up. But when I was 16 years old, there was a famous soccer player named Shep Messing. He played goalie for the Cosmos, and his brother was also a star named Roy Messing. And when I was 15 years old, the Messings had a camp, a soccer camp, and they hired me as a 15-year-old to be the videographer to film all the kids playing soccer. And so I'd film them, and then around 6 o'clock when they were eating dinner in a big cafeteria, they would watch the video that I'd film. I'd have a wire connected to my camera, which would connect to a projector. And one day I came and we filmed, and during dinner I was about to set up the camera and put the wire to the projector. I didn't have the wire. I left it at home, which meant I couldn't play the video. So I went to Roy Messing and I told him, I don't have the wire, I'm sorry, Roy. And I thought he would say, it's okay, don't worry about it. He didn't. He just said, we need that wire so we could see these videos. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it. We need this wire. Okay, I don't drive. What should I do? And remember, he looked at me and he said, find a way. Find a way. I like didn't know my mother wasn't home or whatever. I finally, after figuring it out, called my cousin Johnny. She was so sweet, and she drove. She actually broke through a window. I told her where it was in the den and under a couch. So she went there. She drove. Everyone was waiting about 45 minutes. She drove, gave me the wire, put the wire in. Okay, I got the wire and set it up. And he said, okay, everyone. So I did finally do it. And then I looked at Roy Messing, waiting to say, great job, Rob. And he didn't. He just walked by. And I remember being, look what I did. I did it. I did all this. And he didn't say anything. But then about 50 feet, when he went past me, he turned around, looked at me, and I could still hear what he said. See, I knew you'd find a way. Oh,
wow.
That is the incident in my life that I bring. So going back to your question, there are things that happen in the studio that happen. I can't think of it right now.
No, but that's fine.
But when I say that story to my students.
Call me in the middle of the night and tell me.
Yeah, I will. But it happens all the time.
Of course
things happen. It's part of the routine. Sure. And that's what it should be. I don't think anything comes to mind that was...
That's fine. My dad was a Holocaust survivor, as you know.
Yes.
And he lived in a forest. And he told me he always had to come up with solutions. How do you survive? Yeah. Every day you have to come up with solutions on survival. Yeah. One time he was caught by Nazis and he managed to escape. Other times he had to go through all kinds of horrific things. The thing is that he taught me while I was working with him. He was a carpenter and he did tile work and things like that. He showed me there's always going to be problems. And most, skilled laborers or skilled craftsmen sometimes find the easy way out and they cheat or cut corners. He says, but you don't do that. He says, you have to find a solution. And you do find solutions.
Find a way.
And he showed me, here's a problem. How do you solve this? And he constantly taught me how to solve problems. And I realized that I could do anything I want as long as I can solve problems, because there's always going to be problems.
Yeah, no.
Right? Because there's solutions.
Right.
Solutions need, there's more solutions than problems. And solutions need problems. Right. So
and by the way, the movie was spectacular. It was just so touching. And yes, I just that's it. I think we're on the same plane, and that is what I do. That's what you do. And when you speak to students, and oh my goodness, you speak to so many students. You've been to our school, and that's part of your story, not just the deep history and what your dad went through.
But the values, that's what we're...
The values.
That's what we're teaching young people.
Exactly. Look, my family was in the music business and the show business, and people were thinking I might go into that. But I had a taste of education through Bob, and I just, this is where I want to be. I might have talent, but I really just love making a difference. It really feels so special in students' lives,
You are one special person.
And you are too.
And you've made a difference with thousands. And think about that, thousands and thousands of young people who you've changed the trajectory of their lives in a good way. And you've impacted them in such a positive way and significant way and powerful way that they think about you. Think about that they think about you time time and time again, when they do things and they say, "Oh yeah, I learned that from Mr. Zahn." So
it's a good gig.
It's a great gig because sometimes that you feel good just helping one person, but you've helped thousands, and so you should be very proud of yourself. I'm proud of you, and
I appreciate it.
And I feel privileged to have you here on my podcast.
It's been an honor to be
Thank
here.
you
It's
so
an honor
much.
to hang out with you for
You
25
are an
minutes.
extraordinary hero. You're no ordinary hero. You certainly are.
You are not.
We can go on for hours.
Yeah, please. Come on.
Well, thank you again for joining
It's my
me.
pleasure. Thank you. Anytime.
I appreciate it. And I want to thank my listening audience today for joining me. I'm Bernie Furshpan, host of Ordinary Heroes on hmTV at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. Until next time.